Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vaga Muradian here in sunny Orlando, Florida, where we're covering this rich training and simulation ecosystem that exists here in Florida. And we've got on with us Dr. Wes Naylor, who's a retired United States Navy captain, former Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division down here, NOC TSD, also with the University of Central Florida, and of course the founder and CEO of 50 Pound Brains. Wes, talk to us a little bit about the unique environment here that exists across the training and simulation ecosystem. Why here in Florida, and what is Florida doing to really, remain in the forefront, whether it's in the gaming industry or on the military side of the house?
Well, there's a couple things about the ecosystem here that are unlike anywhere else. And frankly, DoD, Department of Navy, have been trying to find ways to emulate, but there's some aspects that you just can't emulate. We're very fortunate that we have all four services here, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, all clustered around the 40 acres of NOC TSD. But what makes it really unusual is we sit inside of one of the top 5 business parks in the United States. And more important, we sit adjacent to the second largest university in the United States, the University of Central Florida, which is the #1 supplier of engineering talent to DoD and NASA. So we have access to talent and resources in a way that most other people don't have. Additionally, we've got a tremendous partner in the state of Florida who has financed hundreds of millions of dollars in improvements to make sure that DoD can execute its mission here.
And what are some of the keys? You've spent time in government, you've spent time in academia, you've also spent time in the private sector. What are the keys to get the most benevolent series of cooperations among the three, given that academia and government tend to be somewhat more bureaucratic heavy than industry does at the end of the day?
It's a great question, and quite frankly, it's can you create an environment where you can bring all three of those together, where you can remove the constraints of government and academic bureaucracy and operate at the speed of business. That's not always possible, especially if you're in a dispersed organization. How it's difficult enough to drive teamwork across distance, but it's even more difficult to drive policy across distance. So if we can come together and create an organization where we've got a great partner like the University of Central Florida, where we can create contract vehicles through other transaction authorities and bring in private sector capital to accelerate some of the things that we want to do with government, it makes it easier for us to operate and provides that safe space to experiment that isn't always present in other places.
Let's talk a little bit about investment. I think folks don't recognize that the kind of high fidelity video games that really put you in an immersive simulated environment cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop at the end of the day. They'll make a lot of money for the people who are making that investment, but sometimes not where games are invested in. What's the kind of investment level that's required in a globally competitive ecosystem where you've got technological leaders now that are actually small nations that many people wouldn't really intuitively think of? What's the kind of sustained national level investment and state level investment? What's the right way to think about this problem if the United States is going to remain on the competitive edge?
I think you're seeing a lot of our leaders across the United States government, specifically inside the Department of Defense, speak about this, is our investment rates as a government have not kept pace with most of our competitors. And in order for us to keep pace with competitors who control their budgets a lot more tightly because of the form of government, we need to marry private sector investment with government investment to go after technologies that have military application, but potentially have dual use application as well. You have to keep in mind that the United States government, Department of Defense, is not the technological buying force that it was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. We were funding much of the effort going forward, but now there's these different sectors that you mentioned, gaming, entertainment, that there are a lot larger investments in. And how do we leverage that? I would rather, instead of DoD investing $200-300 million in developing a gaming engine, I'd rather leverage the $100 that every 15-year-old is paying for a new game, and it's going into whether it's Unity or EA Sports and their developmental efforts, and leverage that investment in a way that we can use that without having to have the government invest in it. I think also what's really unique about Orlando in this space is You have to understand that the technologies that we're using to advance learning are the same technologies that are being used by Disney, Universal, EA Sports, and all the people that are finding ways to engage our young people. We're both trying to do the same thing, but for different purposes. Ours is to drive learning, to improve national defense and improve our economy. Theirs is to drive fun, but it's the same technology.
Wes, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.